If I don't read these books in 2025, there will be consequences. What those consequences will be, I have no idea. These are just the books that I desperately want to read in 2025. And usually when I make these kinds of lists, I don't really stick to them, but this year is the year that I really, really, really want to make an effort to try and stick to this exact list. And I'm thinking, every 5 or 10 or maybe 15 books that I read off of this list, I can get a very tiny reward. All of these books are on my physical TBR, so maybe I can get a new book as a reward. But anyway, hello! I'm so glad that you're here. I'm so excited to tell you about the books that I want to read in 2025. And before I tell you about the books that I want to read, I would absolutely love to know what books you want to read in 2025. So definitely let me and everyone know in the comments so we can give each other ideas and suggestions and everything. That's always one of my favorite parts, is hearing what you guys have planned as well. But anyway, I have 10 classics and 10 literary fiction, 10 contemporary books to share with you that I want to read in 2025. I have a list in my phone. I have more than these books on this list, but these are the books from that list that I desperately must read. I have a few more that I've actually already been checking off, and I'm not counting them because I want to start counting the books from when I post this video onwards. So I hope that makes sense. But anyway, I will start with classics because the book I am currently reading is from this list and it is a classic, and that is The Blue Castle by Ella Montgomery. I am loving this so much, I swear. My 2025 reading, I don't know if it's because the more time that goes on, I just am better at knowing my reading taste. I'm loving this. The Blue Castle is one of Ella Montgomery's only novels that follows an older character. Older as in she's 29 at the beginning of the novel. And it's reminding me a lot of characters or old maids or spinsters from Jane Austen novels. Also, Ella Montgomery's writing is really reminding me of Jane Austen because she's really, really witty and clever and kind of sarcastic and funny. The main character, Valancy, and also the narrator herself. We're following this 29-year-old character called Valancy Sterling, and she doesn't really have a lot going for her. She's never had a beau. She's really just kind of looked down upon by her whole family. She's really treated like a child. She is very restricted in her family. And it's about her finding out at the very beginning of the novel that she has a very serious heart condition and she doesn't know really how long she will live. And so that kind of pushes her over the edge and she goes against the grain and she starts just acting. She isn't suppressing her feelings anymore, and she's telling her family exactly how she feels, and she's being kind of, they keep saying she's acting feverish, or she's so unlike herself, and she's kind of embarrassing her family and herself, but not really, she's just being genuine. I'm that much of the way in. I love Ella Montgomery as a writer. I read the entire Anne of Green Gables series, and it's one of my favorite series. I actually just read the graphic novel, which was one of my first 5-star reads of this year, which is illustrated by Brenda Thumler. Mariah something is the one who edited the text together, but that was one of my 5-star reads of this year, and then rereading Anne of Green Gables in the graphic novel form really made me excited to read more Ella Montgomery, and The Blue Castle was on this list, so I was like, you know what, I really want to read this, and I'm loving it. Her writing is fantastic, her descriptions, again, this book is so witty and clever, and I'm just adoring it, so I'm so glad that we are off to a very good start with 2025 reading, and also checking off books off of this list. I'm feeling really excited to accomplish these goals and to keep checking off books that I've been meaning to read. I feel like the thing about this list of books is these are all books that I have been meaning to read for ages, and I just keep putting off for different random reasons, and that is the year that I stopped. This is the year that I stopped doing that. The next one that I want to read is Night Flight by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. Like Anne of Green Gables and Ella Montgomery, The Little Prince is one of my favorite books written by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, and I haven't read any of his other writing, and this is a very short novel. The back says, no writer has equaled Saint-Exupéry in describing the perilous and poetic experience of flying. in submission to what he calls those elemental divinities, night, day, mountain, sea, and storm. They describe it as gripping, beautifully written. It's a novel that he tells about the brave men who pilot night mail from Patagonia, Chile, and Paraguay to Argentina in the early days of commercial aviation. And it sounds really interesting, and I would just love to hear more about his perspective as a pilot, because he was a pilot. So I'm really excited for this one. It's also nice and short, and I can't wait to read something that's not The Little Prince by one of my favorite writers. I feel bad calling him a favorite writer because I've only read one book from him, so that's why I want to change that. I want to read more of his work. The next classic that I would really like to read is The Lottery by Shirley Jackson. I have only read We Have Always Lived in the Castle by Shirley Jackson, and I really enjoyed that one. I really liked her writing, and I want to read more from her. So I'm really excited about this one. I believe it's a short story or a novella, and I don't know too much about it, but I kind of want to go in not knowing too much because her writing is very atmospheric and kind of suspenseful, and I want to be surprised. So really excited to read this one. And I also love this edition. It's the little penguin cloth bounds. It's so beautiful. Then we have A Study in Scarlet by Arthur Conan Doyle. I have yet to read any of the Sherlock Holmes books, and I just really want to change that. Also the fact that this is so short, and I feel like I want to save it for the autumnal season in 2025. I'm not a very big detective or mystery reader, and I really want to dabble in one of the ultimate classics in that genre. So I'm excited to read this one eventually in 2025, and to finally be able to say that I've read something in the Sherlock Holmes universe or series. The next one is The Sorrows of Young Werther by Goethe. I am really excited to read this, although I have heard that it's extremely heartbreaking and slightly depressing, but I'm interested in understanding why it makes people feel that way. That kind of intrigues me. It makes me want to read it a little bit more. I don't want to know too much about it going in. I kind of want to go in, again, to be a bit surprised. It's also very short, so I don't want to be spoiled or anything by the back, but I'm really excited to read Goethe's work and to read more writers from different countries. He was from Germany, so I'm really excited because obviously we have Ella Montgomery was from Canada, Antoine de Saint-Exupéry was French, Arthur Conan Doyle's English, Shirley Jackson is American, right? Yeah, I think she's American. We have Goethe, who's German, so I want to make sure that I am a well-rounded reader in 2025, especially with these classics. So the next one we have is a writer who I adore. I have read so many of his books, but I haven't read one of his most famous, and I think it's just simply because I'm nervous, and that is E.M. Forster's A Passage to India. This is a book that has been recommended to me a million times over, and I am going to finally read it in 2025. I am determined. I believe it's based on his experiences traveling to India. Forster himself made 3 separate visits to India in 1912, 1921, and 1945. During his second visit, he spent 6 months as a private secretary to a Maharaja. Oh wow, and his first-hand experiences of the country clearly inform this novel of anti-colonialism. A Passage to India remains, as the Washington Post calls it, the classic novel about India against which all others ever since have been measured and found wanting. Whoa. That is some high praise. I am nervous, but also looking forward to it, but also very nervous. The next one is another one that I'm like slightly embarrassed I haven't read yet, and it's one that I keep putting off for absolutely no reason. I think because I have a feeling it's going to be a favorite, and that just scares me, because what if it isn't a favorite? That's Madame Bovary by Gustave Flaubert. This is another book that a lot of people say if you love Anna Karenina, you'll love Madame Bovary. And if you know me, you know that Anna Karenina is my all-time favorite classic, all-time favorite book, and so the claim that I will love this because I love Anna Karenina completely changed my life, and so I'm just very nervous to read this one because I don't want to compare it to Anna Karenina. I want to go in without any preconceived notions, so I'm going to try to go in without any. The back on these beautiful Pan Macmillan Collector's Library editions, I have so many of these. As you can see, they're some of my favorites. There's always a wonderful quote on the back, and this one says, "She wished at the same time to die and to live in Paris." Oof. Speaking of Anna Karenina and Leo Tolstoy, we have The Death of Ivan Ilyich. This is a short story, short novella that I have yet to read, and that boggles my mind because Tolstoy is my all-time favorite writer, and I really want to continue to read more from him. I don't know if I read anything from Tolstoy in 2024, which breaks my heart, so I really want to read more from him and consistently read his work over the course of my life. I don't want to try and read all of his works at once and have nothing left, but I'm really excited to read The Death of Ivan Ilyich because I've heard great things. This is number 87 in the Penguin Little Black Classics. On the back it says, "Laying humanity bare, these two devastating stories ask, is it possible to have a good death? And what does it mean to truly live?" So there is another story in here called The Three Deaths. So it is the death of Ivan Ilyich and also The Three Deaths. So maybe I'll probably end up reading The Three Deaths as well, just so I read the whole book. My good friend Leo. This next one is a book that I'm kind of in denial about because it's the last book, it's the last complete novel that I have from Jane Austen. It's Mansfield Park. This book I am planning on reading in May for my book club, the Well Read Book Club, so if you'd like to join me in reading Mansfield Park, we will be reading it in May. You can find a link to join my book club in the description. Not my last video, which was my best books of 2024, but the video before I talked about the books and genres we'll be reading in 2025 for my book club, so if you're interested, I'll link that. So yes, we will be reading Mansfield Park. It's my last Jane Austen complete novel. I still have Sanditon, and I also have some of her juvenilia, and also her letters. I really, really, really want to read Jane Austen's letters, but after I finish Mansfield Park, because then I have more to look forward to. I've never watched an adaptation of this story, and I don't exactly know what it's about. I know we're following a character named Fanny, and I believe she either was adopted or her family doesn't really care about her too much, and then she has to live at Mansfield Park or something, or she's misplaced. These are my guesses. I don't know. I'm excited to not know too much and to be pleasantly surprised by Jane, and I'm just in denial that this is my last complete Jane Austen novel, but at the same time, then I get to reread her work and appreciate it in a completely new way, and to maybe discover things that I didn't see on my first reads. So I am excited about that, but also devastated. The final classic that I want to read in 2025 is another one that I have been meaning to read for ages, and that is Wide Sargasso Sea by Jean Rhys. This is a retelling of one of the side characters in Jane Eyre, and Jane Eyre is the classic that got me into reading classic literature. It's one of my all-time favorite books, and the fact that I haven't read this one yet is mind-boggling because, number one, it's been on my shelves for years, but also I love Jane Eyre and I want to see this interpretation of the story because it's following a character that I don't think any reader who reads Jane Eyre won't be interested in, and I just can't wait to see this new perspective of the story in a way. I need to finally read it. So those are the 10 classics that I am going to be reading in 2025. I will read all of these books. If I don't, I'm going to be massively disappointed in myself. Okay, moving on to more contemporary literature. The first one that we have here is A Pale View of Hills by Kazuo Ishiguro. Kazuo Ishiguro is one of my all-time favorite writers. I have all of his books, which you can't see, but this is, I believe, his debut novel. Yes, this is his debut, and I wanted to read it last year, but I didn't get a chance to, and I desperately want to read more Ishiguro. I always like reading at least one of his books every year, and I'm really excited to read this one. The back says, Kazuo Ishiguro's highly acclaimed debut, first published in 1982, tells the story of Etsuko, a Japanese woman now living alone in England, dwelling on the recent suicide of her daughter. Retreating into the past, she finds herself reliving one particular hot summer in Nagasaki when she and her friends struggled to rebuild their lives after the war. But as she recalls her strange friendship with Sachiko, a wealthy woman reduced to vagrancy, the memories start to take on a disturbing cast. So I think I might save this for the summertime because it says, as she finds herself reliving one particular hot summer in Nagasaki. So I'm really excited to read more Ishiguro. My favorite book of his, everyone has to read it. It's Never Let Me Go. I will tell everyone to read it for the rest of my life. And don't know anything going in. Just go in completely blind, and then you'll get your heart ripped out. Anyway, that's besides the point. But what I love about his books is that they're all so entirely different, and they all have a very different vibe, and he's just a very surprising author because I never know really what to expect from his stories. So I'm really, really looking forward to reading this one. The next one is a book that one of my very good friends, Evelyn, it's one of her favorite books, and I am probably going to read it in the UK edition, which I have in Bristol, but right now I have the US edition because it has been on my shelves for ages. I got this for, I think, like 50 cents at my library's used bookshop. That is My Brilliant Friend by Elena Ferrante. So this is a book that I am embarrassed to not have read because I am Italian American. So I am American, but my family is from Italy, and in particular from a small town in Naples. And this is set in a small town in Naples, and my mom watched the recent TV show or miniseries adaptation of this book, and I didn't watch it because I didn't want to be spoiled for the book, but she said that it was at times really difficult to watch because she kept picturing her mother in that setting. The events in the book I don't think reflect what happened to my grandmother at all. I believe it's about kind of a toxic friendship between two young girls as they grow up and the position of women at the time. I'm not sure when it's set exactly. The story of Elena and Delilah begins in the 1950s in a poor but vibrant neighborhood on the outskirts of Naples. I don't want to know too much because I really just want to go in, again, be surprised by it. But I have a feeling that this is really going to hit home for me. Having heard stories my entire life growing up, I always heard stories from my grandmother about her experiences growing up in Naples. So I think that this is going to be a really impactful read that I can really relate to in a way. Speaking of my friend Evelyn, this is a book that she gifted to me for Christmas because it's one of her favorites, and I actually have been meaning to read it, and I really want to read it this year. That is Kitchen by Banana Yoshimoto. This is the beautiful Faber edition, which I just love so much. On the front, I love that the whole table is set with all of the food and everything, and the moon is over here. And then on the back, the moon is over here and the table is empty, so it's just showing like the before and after dinner, which I just think is such beautiful cover design. I know that Banana Yoshimoto is a very well-loved author, and this is translated from the Japanese by Megan Backus. The back says, Kitchen comprises Banana Yoshimoto's two classic tales about mothers, transidentity, bereavement, kitchens, love, and tragedy. First published in 1987, it won 2 of Japan's most prestigious literary prizes, remained at the top of the bestsellers list for over a year, and has gone on to be a much-loved international bestseller. The next one, so many of you guys have been recommending to me recently. I think because I read and loved The Bear and the Nightingale by Catherine Arden, and that's based on Russian folklore. That book, it's one of my favorite books, if not my favorite book from 2024, was The Bear and the Nightingale. And the book that you guys keep recommending I read is The Snow Child by Eowyn Ivey. It's not only a national bestseller, but it was also a Pulitzer Prize finalist, so I'm having kind of high expectations going into this book. I bought this recently, and I started reading the first chapter, and I'm really, really loving it. It's about this couple in Alaska in 1920. It says, a brutal place to homestead and especially tough for recent arrivals Jack and Mabel. Childless, they are drifting apart. He struggling to maintain the farm, she crumbling from loneliness and despair. In a moment of levity during the season's first snowfall, they build a child out of snow. The next morning, the snow child is gone, but they glimpse a young girl running through the trees. And I don't want to say too much else, but it's inspired by a Russian folktale, which excites me very much. The writing already, just from what I've read in the beginning, is so beautiful and atmospheric and snowy. I don't know, a 5-star prediction, potentially? I mean, speaking realistically, I feel like all of these are kind of 5-star, at least 4-star predictions, because they wouldn't be on this list unless I really thought that I would love them. The next one is Britt Marie Was Here by Fredrik Backman. This is my last Fredrik Backman that I have unread. He is coming out with a new book in 2025 called My Friends, which I am going to read as soon as it gets published. But this is my last backlist book of his, and you know what, I'm getting to the point where I just want to read it, and I want to be able to say I have read all of his novels. Why I haven't picked up this book already is because I feel sad at the fact that I won't have any of his backlist books to read or any unread novels of his, but it's like finishing Jane Austen's books. I feel like then I'll be able to say that I've read all of this author's works and that I can revisit them with a new eye and to be able to analyze them on a second read and maybe pick up on things that I missed the first time and have a greater appreciation of the story and the writing. And I'm just excited to finish his books, his backlist books, and just keep looking forward to his new releases. So Britt Marie Was Here follows a character that I believe was in another book of his called My Grandmother Asked Me to Tell You She's Sorry, which Fredrik Backman, besides this one, is known for some long titles, which I just love. But Fredrik Backman, I was speaking about him in my last video, my favorites of 2024, and what I was saying in that video is that he captures every emotion that people can experience and feel in one book, and his books are so multifaceted. What they are about is not just what the book addresses. They are so much more than what the plot line, the core plot line is. But anyway, I am happy and sad to read this, but mostly happy. Oh, I missed a classic! I just saw it in my pile. I misplaced a classic. Okay, well, then that means I have 11 classics and 9 contemporary. It doesn't matter. The other classic that I desperately want to read is one that I am extremely intimidated by, but I need to read it. That is The Master and Margarita by Mikhail Bulgakov. Oh god, I'm so nervous about this book, but I'm also extremely looking forward to it, extremely thrilled to read it for the first time. I've heard nothing but incredible things about this book, and also I have only read one other Bulgakov, and that is The Heart of a Dog, and I love The Heart of a Dog. It's one of my all-time favorite books, and I love how wacky and crazy his writing is and his stories are. I just want to experience more of it, and of course this is his most beloved, best-known book, so really excited to read this one. I'm also really excited to read more Russian lit in 2025, but this is like very, very high up on my list of Russian literature that I need to read, and I can't believe I haven't read it yet. So excited, nervous, kind of how I feel about all of these books, but definitely really mainly looking forward to it. The next one is relating to a classic, but it's a contemporary novel, and that is March by Geraldine Brooks. This is a reimagining or a retelling following the father of the 4 March sisters in Little Women. So Little Women is about 4 sisters and their parents. We don't really get much from the father though, like the father figure. We get a lot from the mother, who they call Marmee, and the father is kind of distanced from the family, and I believe this is highlighting the father's story. It says, as the North reels under a series of unexpected defeats during the dark first year of the Civil War, one man leaves behind his family to aid the Union cause. His experiences will utterly change his marriage and challenge his most ardently held beliefs. From Louisa May Alcott's beloved classic Little Women, Geraldine Brooks has taken the character of the absent father, Mr. March, who has gone off to war, leaving his family and daughters to make do in mean-times. From vibrant New England to the sensuous antebellum South, March adds adult resonance to Alcott's optimistic children's novel, a lustily written, wholly original tale steeped in the details of another time. March secures Geraldine Brooks' place as a renowned author of historical fiction. Wow. I feel like that speaks for itself. So, Little Women's one of my favorite books. It was my favorite reread of 2024, and I can't wait to see this reimagining of the story. The next one, again, another book I've been meaning to read for ages, that is Flowers for Algernon by Daniel Keyes. This is a book that I mentioned as one of my books that I've had on my TBR the longest. You guys voted for me to read it in 2024. I didn't read it in 2024, so I will be reading it, I promise, in 2025. It's about a character who has an unusually low IQ and has been chosen as the perfect subject for an experimental surgery that doctors hope will increase his intelligence. And I don't want to know too much else, but it's supposed to be extremely heartbreaking. I would say it's like mildly sci-fi, so we might potentially read this for the Well-Read Book Club as well. Scared, again, like many of these books, scared to read this one because I feel like it's going to break my heart, but I also love a book that breaks my heart and makes me feel so deeply for the story. The final book that I have here with me, and then I will include 2 other contemporary books because I had 9 physical and then I have a few that are in England right now in our apartment with Leon. I want to read those when I go back. But anyway, the last one that I have here with me is A Gentleman in Moscow by Amor Towles. This is a book that I've had on my shelves for forever, and they came out with a show for it. Everybody has been loving it. So many people recommend this book to me because it is set in Moscow, and I love Russian literature. It needs to be read. It's been too long. I just have to do it. Okay, that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Those are 8 contemporary books, so I'm going to include 2 more that I have on my list here that I haven't included in this stack. So we also have another book I desperately want to read is The Memory Police by Yoko Ogawa. That book I have in England physically, so these again are all physical books that I already own. I love The Housekeeper and the Professor by Yoko Ogawa, and I really want to read more of her other work. Another one is Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmis. That's another book that I bought in England specifically because I've heard great things about it and I love the UK edition. It's a very unique story. I believe it's set in the 60s following a female scientist who is really looked down upon because of the fact that she's a woman, and then she gets this cooking show, and through this cooking show she's able to teach the everyday housewife things about science, or like just give them more of a scientific experience. I'm not sure the exact wording I'm trying to go for, but you know what I mean. And then the last contemporary book that I really want to read is I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Harpman. This is a dystopian novel following women that I believe live in a bunker underground, and the main character has never met a man before. They're all women and they are isolated. I'm not exactly sure what the dystopian world setting is like, but I know that we are following a young girl main character who has truly never known men, and I believe them trying to escape in a way. So really excited about that one. I've heard nothing but amazing things. Those are, I believe now, 10 contemporary books, and then we have 11 classics. They're falling. Please don't fall. Maybe I just shouldn't put that there. All right. So maybe I can do a quarterly check-in, or halfway through the year I can do a check-in and let you guys know how many of these books I've actually read. I feel like that could be really fun and keep me accountable because I'm really determined to check these off. I have them in my phone like I showed you. I have them on Notion, and I've already been checking a few of them off, if you can see, and so I have them as check marks, which I am a huge list person. Like, if you give me a to-do list, I have to do everything on it because I need the satisfaction of checking something off of the list. So if you give me a checkbox, I will do it. That's how my brain works. But anyway, so yeah, maybe I can do a little check-in, let you guys know how I'm doing. If you want to hold yourself accountable and give yourself a little list in the comments, and then you can comment again in that check-in how many you guys have accomplished from your list. I think that could be really fun as well. We could hold each other accountable. Or we could just have fun and have there be no pressure. That is completely fine too. But I'm excited about giving myself more of a structured plan. Anyway, I hope that you enjoyed hearing about the books that I am planning on reading in 2025. I would love to know if you have read any of these and what you think about them, or like I said, the other books that you are planning to read in 2025. I am sending you my very best wishes. I hope you are having a fantastic day. I will see you in another video very soon, and as always, happy reading.